Hello, friends. This is Dave Herewith, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. And today we are going to revisit a little boxlet that we've talked about before. We're working our way through Hindemith, and I'm taking my time because I think he was an immensely gifted, incredibly important, and most of all, fabulously enjoyable composer whose reputation right now seems to be on the outs, and it's our job to do something about that. So this is the Deutsche Grammophon collection of Hindemith conducting Hindemith with the Berlin Philharmonic. Now, the story behind these is kind of interesting. These were recorded. Let's get the dates. Let's get the dates right. Because it's sort of important, and there's a story. 1957, okay, 1955, it's all mono, by the way. 1954, 1955, 1956. All right, between 1954 and 1957, so let's just say that. Hindemith passed away, of course, in 1963. When the war ended, Hindemith had, of course, fled Germany in the wake of the scandal caused by the premiere of his Mathias Mahler Symphony in 1938. Or thereabouts, went to Switzerland and then went to New Haven, where he taught at Yale until the war ended. Now, when the war was over, Hindemith was in huge demand back in Germany. He, as an educator and, of course, as a major cultural figure. He had, during the Nazi period, tried to occupy his time doing other things outside of Germany, tentatively. He reorganized the Turkish musical education system under Kemal Ataturk, who was then the head guy in Turkey. And so he spent a lot of time there. And he did various things before he alighted in the United States. So afterwards, they tried very, very hard to get him back. But he refused to accept any positions in Germany. He was wounded. Deeply wounded by the fact that, aside from the fact that the Nazis, were Nazis and did Nazi things, he was wounded by the fact that he felt that he had been rejected by pre-war German culture, German civilization, the German people, the German cultural, institutions. He never forgave them. Never. He settled, eventually he left New Haven and went back to Europe, but he settled in Switzerland, just over the German border. So he could wave at them and say, "Hi, I'm over here, but I'm not going there." Needless to say, he did plenty of stuff in Germany, in the last, I guess in 45. So he had, 18 years of his life. So he spent plenty of time sort of tantalizingly, hanging around in Germany. And also, after the war, he was out of fashion. I mean, the Darmstadt stuff was starting to happen. The avant-garde serialists were taking over everything. Hindemith's style was not that. And so, in addition to being something of a permanent exile from Germany by choice, there was an element there of he had no choice. That was what was going to happen. And so it's very sad. His last years were really rather sad because he felt that his mission, for political and other reasons, was destined to be unfulfilled. However, he did make a bunch of recordings, and he were two clumps of recordings, one for EMI, which were mostly made in the UK with the Philharmonia and whatnot, and the others for Deutsche Grammophon, which were made with the Berlin Philharmonic, which at that point in the mid-50s was still under the direction of, at that point, the Furtwängler had passed away, right, in 53. So it was starting to be, Karajan had taken over, was beginning to take over, and he had no interest in Hindemith other than making that one recording of Mathias Mahler just to, stick a finger in Furtwängler's eye. And it's a lousy recording, as I pointed out, on EMI. And so Hindemith was able to do some of his own major works. He did not spend much time on his early pieces, which are fascinating and really fill in our picture of him and deserve to be played. because they're masterpieces, some of them, quite a few of them, but they're much more difficult than his later works. And so he did this 3-disc set. And in this 3-disc set, we're just going to go through it, and then we'll talk about the performances a bit. His Concerto for Orchestra, which is a 12-minute long, that's one of his tougher pieces. It's very virtuosic, it's very energetic, it's virtually atonal and busy, constantly busy in movie, but it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's his Opus 38. Then the concert music for piano, brass, and harps, which is a very interesting work. We know his concert music principally from the concert music for strings and brass, which he recorded on EMI. It's not in this series, and which is very popular, or was very popular. It should be very popular. And this one was as good as unknown, and it's a big work. It's 24 minutes long, and I think it's incredibly imaginative and interesting. Then we've got his Mathis der Maler Symphony, which he actually recorded a couple of times. On disc 2, the Symphonic Dances, a fabulous piece that no one ever plays. 4 movements, half an hour long. It's really a symphony in many respects, and it's joyful and terrific and full of good tunes, and I don't understand why it doesn't get played. I really don't. The finale has him in Star Wars mode. It's da 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 ba da da bam ba da 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 da. John Williams could have taken a note from it. The 4 Temperaments for piano and strings, which is a theme and variations ballet for strings and piano. It's really, really fun. The Symphonic Metamorphosis of themes by Weber. The Ballet Overture, Amour and Psyche, which is a late piece, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It was a ballet overture, as he called it. And finally, his Harmonie der Welt Symphony, which is taken from the opera of the same title, based on the life of Johannes Kepler. And then there's a 2-minute interview with Hindemith on his recording of the Symphony of Mathis der Maler, recorded in Tokyo in 1958, which is, did they translate it here? That would have been nice. Of course not. Why should they? Let's see. Oh, okay, never mind. Monique Haas, by the way, is the excellent pianist in the, variations. Yes, the 4 Temperaments. So how are the performances? Well, Hindemith was not a very good conductor. He was not a very good conductor of his own music. He did make a very good recording of Bruckner's 7th Symphony at one point, but he was not known as a conductor. And even in his own music, Hindemith's music can be clunky. It can be sort of rhythmically a bit rigid and stiff, and it can be, somewhat congested sounding orchestrally. And he had no clue how to deal with that situation. There are many other conductors of his music who just breeze through it without a care in the world, and it never sounds clunky. It sounds lovely, and it's wonderfully colorful and terrific, and they do it just fine. But he just didn't have any sense of how to do it. The sonics are sort of so-so mono, well, what can I tell you? It's always interesting to hear a composer's own view of the piece, if only to get the tempos that they choose. But this is not great Hindemith. It's important and interesting Hindemith. But the performances themselves have been roundly outclassed, thank God, by many others in much better sound. And that's the reality. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.